You know, yesterday I promised Babe that I would tell him how I invented the first chainsaw. Now, Granny is nice enough to draw some pictures for today's story. So, you know, the Russians claim that they invented the first chainsaw, but actually I did.
Gee, I'm glad you beat him to it, Paul.
Well, yeah. Here's a picture that Granny just drew of a chainsaw. You see? Oh, no. Granny, this isn't the kind of chainsaw that I invented.
Well, tell us about the one you invented, Paul.
Well, it worked on some very scientific principles, Babe. Principles such as suspended animalation.
Well, is that another one of your goofy inventions?
Yeah. No, well, suspended animalation is very scientific. You see, there was this squirrel cage, and it hung from a big tree. Now, hooked up to the squirrel cage was a long leather belt, which was attached to the saw mechanism. Now, inside the squirrel cage, there were these several squirrels that just loved to make that cage whirl when they were chasing after nuts and raisins.
Boy.
Here's a picture that Granny drew of this squirrel cage type
They
chainsaw.
sure worked cheap.
Yeah, they did.
I'll bet you they did all of your timber sawing while you slept.
Sawing timber?
Well, isn't that what a chainsaw's for? Unless, oh no, not sawing chains.
Well, of course. Well, we took and we saw these great big iron chains in the little teeny pieces.
What on earth for?
Well, I had an idea, you see, Babe. I figured if I could get these little chains in little pieces, well, you know how spinach is so good for you?
Yuck.
Well, the reason it's so good for you is because it has a lot of iron in it. And I figured if a little iron was good for you, a little more would be even better yet. So I took these little pieces of chain, iron chain, and sprinkled them all over the spinach patch. And then when the spinach was ready for harvesting, I tested it with a great big magnet.
I test my spinach with my teeth.
Well, that's true, but here, let me show you what it looked like when I tested the spinach. Granny drew this picture, and you see the magnet pulled the spinach right out of the ground. See?
I don't know about this.
Well, you know, the spinach that we grew didn't taste too much different than regular spinach, but it had some pretty terrible side effects.
You mean like too much iron in your side?
No, things like having to worry about getting out in the rain and getting rusty. That was pretty bad. But the worst part that we had to worry about was, well, the men had to dull their axes every morning trying to shave with, you know, these iron whiskers were terrible.
Now, Paul.
What do you mean? What? We know what we had to do? Granny just drew a picture of what we had to do. We had to use a file. And it took the men 2 hours every morning to file off those whiskers.
Oh.
What do you think of that story, huh, Babe? Huh? Oh, come on now. It's true. It really is.
That's a true story?
Oh, come on now. Why don't you be... How would you like to hear another story, huh? Would you?
Well, let's see a cartoon just for a refreshing change.
Okay. I'll see a cartoon.